Here's what I want. We have nothing to do with Epstein. The Democrats do. All of his friends were Democrats. And it's just a Russia hoax as it pertains to the Republicans. Now,
so you get that? Donald Trump literally just gave it all away. What the spin job was. And I'm not just talking about since 2015, since he ran. The spin job that went before that. At the end of this tape, you're going to hear the complete recordings about what was done, about the discussions about Tommy Bahama, about the one-stop parties that Trump put on, and really kind of like the culture of the 90s regarding the men who were kind of going to these Epstein parties and the one-stop parties and the other parties that were probably put on, because this was like a tight group of people who were insulated and protected. Just like what happened with the Manhattan DA's office when the Manhattan DA went after Epstein and went light, because these people were heavily connected, very wealthy, very powerful, and they knew the truth. They knew the simple truth that men have been taught forever. It's very simple. Teenage girls might look hot, but you better not touch. 2, 16 will get you 20, but 20 can get you a 69. That's a reminder about the age of consent in this country, and for you to remember that so that you know as you grow older never to deal with anyone 16 and under, because that's the age of consent. It's better to mark it at 18 because there are some states where 18 is the age of consent. So you just simply have to pull that into your brain. But these people were living with Epstein and being around Epstein's little tight-knit group of people. And this tight-knit group of people realized that they had created a world, thanks to Jeffrey Epstein, where they were protected. And what all of this information is telling you is how this network worked, how it operated, how it was functioning, how it protected itself, how, like, it was $15,000 a night for each individual girl, according to the information that came out of the Manhattan DA email. And then you got more about, for example, like selling the depreciation of these girls, that they were literally using this community to generate cash. They were holding parties literally inside of Trump's properties, overlooking Central Park, with these girls, and these girls being brought in wanting wealth, just basically floundering all over these men. But what happens? Epstein goes down. And when he goes down, 2004, 2008, that's when it's really happening, right? That's when they start having this big problem, because that world is now under threat and in danger. All of these men who had been going to the park, had been out there with teenage girls, being seen with teenage girls, who potentially are facing statutory rape, being called pedophiles, and all these things. So they get under this gigantic threat that their world is in danger. So how do you protect it? How do you, as a very wealthy person, maybe media connections, all this stuff, how do you address that? And the answer is make it partisan. You see, if you turn it into a political issue, because political figures are there, so you turn it into a political issue. And what you do is you create basically a whole political world and a media world in which people who are on one political side believe that they are champions and all of these things, fighting against the grand evil of sex trafficking, of human trafficking, of exploitation of children, and anything else that they can possibly think of. Hell, they're turning the children into why they continue to look beautiful. It's beauty products in Hollywood, whatever. It's all of these things. But all of that is created for one purpose: take half the country and make them feel that they are going after the bad party, which are the Democrats, who are the only people doing this. Now, they know they're not going to be able to sell everyone, but they don't need to sell everyone. They just need to hype up in a lot of people this belief that what you are is you are opposing sexual abuse of children, instead of knowing the simple truth. There isn't a man alive who is outside of that circle of people who have been educated by Epstein that having sex with teenagers is okay. That it's okay because they're not prepubescent children. They're not 8-year-olds. They're 12-year-olds. They're 13-year-olds. They're 15-year-olds. They're 16-year-olds. But they're barely legal, all that stuff, like what Megyn Kelly said, right? So they're doing all of these things to try to justify, because that is actually what pedophiles do. They start to justify their sexual attraction to minors, and why what they're doing is actually beneficial for the child of which they are abusing. As you can see, even in the Katie Johnson tape, at the end of the video, in the end of her conversation, which deals with the rape, which after the end of Trump's tying her down and her begging it, Trump says, "You're lucky that a guy like me did this to you." Why would he say that? Because he believes he's teaching her, the world. He's teaching her to be a better lover, all the things that could go on in his head as to what he is doing, when what he is doing is criminal. But that isn't just Trump. That's all of them. That's how it worked. And that's what they did to you if you're in QAnon, if you're in MAGA, if you're in any way connected to this whole thing about, Pizzagate, all this stuff. It was all created to protect this particular group of people so that they could feel safe, knowing that there would be a group of people that they could draw you in to this world in which you're superheroes protecting all of the children from all of the other side, the Democrats, who are doing hyper deadly dangerous things to children, instead of what you should be doing. The hell with that. If Democrats knew that other Democrats were doing any of the sexual assaults on children, Democrats would rip that person to pieces. Just like Republicans. If Republicans see Republicans doing things, they should do that. We need to realize that that was the game, and we need to be out of it. Thank you.
But they were with him all the time. I wasn't at all.
Gross decided to dig a little deeper into Trump's past to find out more details about the legendary parties Trump used to host at the Plaza Hotel, which he owned at the time. It was well known that these parties were filled with minors. Many were young models trying to get their big break. It was a different world in the 90s. Sleeping with underage girls was just something that a lot of rich, powerful men did. No one thought twice about it. It was especially common in the fashion world. To provide further details on the parties Trump hosted, Gross found 2 former attendees who agreed to give details of what they saw going on. The first was a photographer who attended many parties, but requested that his name remain anonymous, for obvious reasons. Here's what he had to say.
Trump would take over suites on the corners of his hotel with views of Central Park and Grand Army Plaza. The attraction for the men was young girls assuming they'd get somewhere by joining the party. Of course, it never happened. Young models were attracted to the parties with a simple, time-tested pitch. You'll meet rich guys who will help you. It was networking, but on a weird, bizarre scale. The girls were as young as 15 and were in over their heads. They had no idea, and they ended up in situations. There were always dramas because the men threw money and drugs at them to keep them enticed. It's based on power and dominating girls who can't push back and can be discarded. There's always someone to pick them back up. Trump would go from room to room. I was there to party myself. It was guys with younger girls, sex, a lot of cocaine, top shelf liquor, but no smoking. Trump didn't approve of cigarettes. The men at these parties often knew each other. It's a small community. They exchanged information, facilitated each other. Trump was in and out. He'd wander off with a couple girls. He was getting laid like crazy. Trump was at the heart of it. He loved the attention, and in private, he was a total fucking beast.
The second attendee Michael Gross spoke to was not only a frequent visitor at the Trump parties at the Plaza Hotel, but also helped to organize them by recruiting models. His name is Andy Lucchese. He was a friend of Donald Trump's in the 90s. Andy was a successful model who still does modeling to this day, working for Lock Management. Andy's face may seem familiar. He was the face of Tommy Bahama for over a decade. And in Michael Gross's article that ended up being published by the Daily Beast, for some unknown reason, Andy Lucchese allowed Gross to attach his name to his quotes. This is a prime example of how in the minds of many, a powerful man having sex with a minor in those days wasn't a big deal. As you'll soon find out when you hear his quotes, Andy is basically telling the world that he slept with underage girls, and that it wasn't a big deal. It's just something he did back in the day.
It's fair to say that I was a recruiter for the parties. As for the parties themselves, there was cocaine around. Donald Trump did not do cocaine. He was in control of himself. Girls? Well, of course. But did he have sex with his female party guests? So, he's a man with a woman. How old were they? A lot of girls, 14, look 24. That's as juicy as I can get. I never asked how old they were. I just partook. I did partake in activities that would be considered controversial today.